Here, I'm going to actually post this question up because this is actually an interesting topic to talk about. He says, both Jedi and Forspoken look like they're God of War style third-person gameplay. Then you have Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 remakes, Death Stranding 2. Even Judas seems to be a copy of BioShock. They all feel like there's nothing new or original in these games, right? Yeah, and you know what? I think it stands to reason that one thing that we can say is that sadly we are sorely lacking innovation in the modern gameplay landscape. Look at the games for Game of the Year, right? God of War Ragnarok is a sequel to God of War. It plays like the God of War from 4 years ago. It looks like the God of War from 4 years ago. Does it have some improvements? Yes. But for all intents and purposes, it doesn't innovate. It's the same game from 4 years ago with modernized tweaks with some better content in there, right? Elden Ring. It's definitely the culmination of everything FromSoft been working for, but Elden Ring is basically Dark Souls plus Sekiro. It's what they've already made. It's nothing innovative or new. You've played this game before. If you played their other franchises, all they did is they went, slapped them all together into one. Is it completely different? Does it break the mold? No, it does not. What you're now seeing is a shift in the industry to move towards games that are well recognized as formulas that work and will make money. And that's because we're in a recession, essentially. Even though you might not realize it because our government doesn't want to say it. We're in a time period now where inflation is bad. People don't have the ability to run out there and buy 10 games at a time. And if they're going to spend their hard-earned money on a game, they want to buy the game that's hyped by the media, that's familiar to them, that looks like something they're going to be able to jump in and enjoy. And by the way, enjoy with a crowd. That's another key factor here. Yes, the indie darling very well may be one of the most innovative and best games of the last 5 years, but unless people are now able to have a groupthink enjoyment of that game with a mob on social media, they don't care anymore. Look at the games that are selling the best now. Every game that goes viral on social media ends up being a bestseller because people want to have that mob experience of a game that's familiar to them. You see? And that's not very good, in my opinion. What's happening is it seems like it's stifling a lot of creativity. I was just talking to my wife about this last night. I was like, think about 10 years ago, about how the gameplay landscape was changing and how we had a ton of innovation, right? I remember when I was first starting as a YouTuber, we had games like Mass Effect, right? Which felt like an interactive Star Trek adventure with RPG and action elements. I'd never played a game that was a hybrid like that before, and it was unique. What about BioShock? A game that combined horror and suspense with first-person shooter action. And then you had games like Deus Ex or the Fallout franchises. Again, these were all like hybrid franchises that were creating unique gameplay experiences. And then what happened? They just were copied times 1 zillion, right? And then you get to innovate. FromSoft comes out. We're going to make Demon Souls and turn it into Dark Souls. Wow, that's innovative. So then what do they do for the next decade? They make the same game 400 more times. Right? And now I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that it seems like we're having a major problem in the current games industry space with innovation. There is none. It's the same formulas regurgitated over and over with a different IP behind it. Oh, look, it's the same combat, but it's a Star Wars game now. Oh, look, it's the same combat, but it's God of War now. It's the same combat. Oh, look, you know what I mean? So, yeah. I think in this case, there needs to be a reinvigoration of the gaming industry because what's going to end up happening is you're going to have 2 or 3 games a year that are notable and make a ridiculous amount of sales, and there's going to be so much else white noise out there that's just going to get swept under the rug, right? Some of the most innovative games of this year, people absolutely refuse to even give the time of day. Stray. Stray is by far one of the most unique games I've ever played in the last 5 to 6, 7 years I've played games. People, oh, it's a cat game. Fuck that. It's stupid. Why? Oh, because Elden Ring. Elden Ring? Elden Ring is the same fucking game you already played 25 times with a horse and some platforming. But it's Elden Ring. No. What you have is hype. You bought into the hype. 1 million people kissing the game's butt, saying it's such an insanely good game. I'm not saying it's not a good game, but I'm saying when all you do is you listen to the hype and you refuse to give any kind of time of day to game experiences that are outside of that hype bubble, you're missing out on what gaming really is supposed to be. You're missing the artistic design of new game experiences, and you're really missing out on what it's supposed to, be as any kind of a meaningful experience. If all you do is the same, there's people who literally only buy Call of Duty every year. They only buy Madden or NBA 2K every year. That's their game. And they pump insane amounts of money into those industries. Why do you think Call of Duty is a $1 billion industry when every year the game sucks? Right? This is why. Because people buy into this stupid hype and they don't wake up from their own fucking hype bubble. So that's what I mean. Like, yeah, we have a major problem in the games industry with stagnation and lack of innovation because the companies all see dollar signs around the same archetypes and formulas for games. Third person, action, get it out there, right? Horror has to be first person, has to be survival, forget about combat. It just has to be walking simulator style game. So we could keep going on and on, all right, about this kind of how each formula, each cookie cutter formula keeps being used over and over. But yeah, it's pretty sad. It is pretty sad when you're looking at, here's all the game announcements. Space horror game, space horror game, space horror game, space horror game, space horror game. That was basically Summer Games Fest, right? Like, what the fuck? Why are there so many space horror games all of a sudden, right? And then you look at these games. Oh, third person action, third person action, third person action, third person action, third person action. Huh? Aren't there any other genres of game out there right now? No. Not games that sold, that's for sure. And again, what I keep telling you guys, every year, you guys jump on me because I refuse to play the knockoffs, right? When Thymesia or, what was the one? There was like 10 of these fucking FromSoft knockoff games in the last year, right? 10 of them. And every time one of them comes out, you guys yell at me because I don't play it. Why don't you play it? Because it's a fucking knockoff. It's just capitalizing on the popularity of FromSoft. If you buy those games and you give them attention and you give them support, all you're doing is you're moving those cogs further. You're allowing that wheel of profit to continue churning, and you're stifling innovation by supporting the same game over and over and over and over, right? So then you have no one to blame when 5 years later, all the games are identical because you bought the same game 14 times, right? So what did you think would happen? They would work on something else? Why? You're paying for the junk. You see? I think that the games industry has a huge problem right now. And with the stifled innovation, I'm hoping something happens to kind of give it a kick in the butt. But I don't know what it's going to be, honestly. I don't. You know? Maybe we're going to see a game crash. We very well might. There's been game industry crashes before. When the market got oversaturated with too much similar stuff. People didn't want to buy it anymore. And then you saw a whole crash of an entire industry. I hope that doesn't happen with video games. But certainly, we need innovation, and we're not getting it right now. Okay?